next one is Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Then 19 is the servant of Lord Voldemort. 20 is the Dementor's kiss, and 21 is Hermione's secret. The last one is 22. I'll post again. But these next 3 chapters, Cat, Rat, and Dog, right? Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs is really important because we're getting this whole, all the dualities are going to become, all the deceptions of all these things are all going to become revealed. So the last chapter is about revelation, revenge, and redemption. I call it the 3 R's. Okay, since we like 3s and Rowling likes 3s in the book, I like to have all of them here at the end. Okay, and that's what these chapters are going to do. So we get the revelation of Black, Pettigrew, and Lupin. We get the revenge of Harry and maybe Snape, his revenge, and then we get redemption, right? And so this follows the hero's journey as we get to the end of the text. At the very end of the chapter, we also get a moment where Snape doesn't get all of his redemption, so he has to kind of like eat his words, and poor Dumbledore has to help him through. And Dumbledore even tells them that, you know, he's had a very big loss. Okay. All right. So let's start with Cat, Rat, and Dog on page 332. This is the last trial. I think if we were to add another R to the revelation, revenge, and redemption, we would add resolution. Right. And I think the resolution is the denouement at the end that Dumbledore gives. And Dumbledore actually gives a really interesting and beautiful denouement. Now, at the end of book 5, there is no true denouement from, there's a denouement from Dumbledore that kind of meets the same kind of like style. And it's really interesting, and even a little more. Okay, so last trial. Harry knows that this has gone crazy, right? As they leave the hut with Scabbers, Scabbers makes a run for it, and where do they end up but at the Whomping Willow? As they get to the Whomping Willow, what happens to Harry and Ron and Hermione? As we get to the Whomping Willow, what happens? Here comes the big black dog, and here comes Crookshanks. Now, earlier in the story, we did see that Crookshanks and Harry was looking out his window, and he saw Crookshanks with this big black dog on the edge of the Black Forest. And he thought he was seeing things. And so we know that Crookshanks is involved. Okay. And if we look at what happens, something was bounding toward them out of the dark, an enormous pale-eyed jet black dog, right? It jumps on Harry and Ron, okay? And it actually takes Ron with him. Ron is trying to hold on to Scabbers, and Crookshanks goes to the tree and does what? What does Crookshanks do? Because this scene is not in the book exactly, in the movie like this. In the movie, the dog just drags him. But in the book, Crookshanks, yes, goes to the knob. The Crookshanks was plotting to the knob on the tree, right? It touches his paws to the knob, and opens, and it like basically opens a hidden passageway under the tree. Okay, and so as the Whomping Willow starts attacking them, here is Crookshanks, right? And he slithered in like a snake and does this on page 336. And so we see Crookshanks personified. He is definitely acting like he knows more than he should. Now, cats have, what is your idea of cats and mythology? Do you guys have any concept of cats and mythology? They were really highly revered in Egypt, and as well in, like, I would say some Asian cultures revered cats, maybe like they show up in Chinese cultures as well too, but mainly in Egyptians. They worshiped them, where they were considered sacred creatures. And they were known to be like very intuitive. Okay. So the idea of cats, right? And I always think that my cat is plotting to do something to me. Um, I'm currently fostering 3 cats that are going to be adopted. So I'm fostering 2 kittens and a mom because she's still weaning. So I'm right now, I have 5 cats in my house because I'm fostering 2 kittens and a cat. And then I have 2 other cats. Keep them all. No, I cannot keep them all. In fact, my kittens are now 9 weeks old. These are not my kittens. I picked them up. I picked up these kittens and this cat. They kind of adopted my house. She had the kittens. I knew she was pregnant. She's walking around the neighborhood. I was worried about her. And then all of a sudden, I've been feeding her, and then she showed up with her baby kittens when they were about 5 weeks old. So she had 3, and then 1 died. So I took them all in and fostered them. And at 12 weeks, they are going to be adopted. So, but I still think that my cats are plotting at my house. I constantly think my cats are plotting. I sometimes think that they're plotting for my death. Okay. Yeah, my house is an animal house. It's like, I call it the cat distribution network, and they pick your house, and they are like, there's also a cat distribution network in like North Miami. If you live in North Miami, then you know that there's a cat distribution network over there in that area. Hialeah has like the chicken distribution network. The chickens live in Hialeah, and there's no cats there. You're right. So like every area of Miami has like the animal, right? Iguanas don't count. Iguanas live everywhere. But there are neighborhoods that are known, right? The chickens are Hialeah. Everybody knows that. Do they have cats? A lot of cats? I've never seen a lot of cats in Hialeah. I've seen dogs. Peacocks, yes. That's a new one. As well too, over the last few years, peacocks. Okay. But the idea of cats being part of the lunar calendar, lunar gods, okay? We also have, so we have them, and then we have, of course, this Crookshanks with this flattened face. And those kinds of cats were very popular. They were bred with those flat faces in Asia. So Asia has a lot of mythology with cats as well too. Egypt is really the strongest, but then we do have some in Asia with cats as well. China has cats are good luck in some areas. Okay, even Japan. In some places they are not, but in some places they are very highly revered. They tend to be intelligent. So Crookshanks personifies all of this. Parrots. Well, it's South Florida. What would we be without parrots, right? So, yeah, now my neighborhood has become a cat neighborhood. We're a cat and dog neighborhood. We get a lot of stray dogs as well too. So we're always like people are good about finding their dogs. But we have definitely a cat neighborhood now. So I've been helping. There's a lady who comes and she makes sure the cats get spayed, and she picks them up at night. She makes sure that she spays them, and then she drops them back off. And there is a system to do that with the, if you ever find a stray cat, especially if it's an adult cat, you can take it down to animal control if you catch it. They will spay the cat, and then they will nip its ear, and then you can release it back into your neighborhood, and the cat won't have babies. The reason I picked up this mom cat and the babies is, one, she was pregnant, and then there's some feral male cats in the neighborhood. One that I call Sirius Black. There's a big black cat in my neighborhood. He's big. He's big and really furry. I call him Sirius Black. And then there's another one that I call Bob because he has no tail. So I call him Bob, like a bobcat. And I was like, these two males don't need to get near her because once she's had babies, she can get pregnant right away. So I brought her in with her babies and immediately put some pictures out to family and friends. And some people were like, oh yeah, I'll take a cat. So I was very, very lucky. If not, I would have had 5 cats. Okay, so I currently have in one room 2 kittens and a mom, who are now 9 weeks old this week. So as we get back to Harry Potter, the idea of this climax, right? So this is the moment where it's a trap, but this is the moment where the hero goes into the abyss in the hero's journey. He goes down the tunnel, right? Hermione and Harry get swatted by the Whomping Willow, but they finally get down there and they lead to the shrinking trap. When they get there, they realize, Ron says it's a trap. It's the famous Luke Skywalker line. It's a trap, from Star Wars, and it's in here as well too. I always think that Rowling is honoring Star Wars here with that it's a trap line, because to me it's Star Wars. Yeah, he does. He says, not a dog, Ron moaned. His teeth were gritted in pain. Harry, it's a trap. Page 338. I got that one, Elizabeth. You quizzed me. All right, so, and he says, what? He goes, he's the dog. He's an animagus. And he wheeled around, and what do we see? A mass of filthy matted hair hung to his elbows. Look at the picture that I have on the screen. Harry wheeled around, right? It's not right. Mass of matted hair hung to his elbows. If eyes hadn't been shining out of his deep, dark sockets, he might have been a corpse. The waxy skin was so stretched so tightly over the bones of his face, it looked like a skull. His yellow teeth were bared in a grin. It was Sirius Black. Expelliarmus, he croaked, pointing Ron's wand at them. Harry and Hermione's wands shot out of their hands high in the air, and Black caught them. Then he took a step closer. His eyes were fixed on Harry. I thought you'd come to help your friend, he said hoarsely. His voice sounded as though he had long since lost the habit of using it. Your father would have done the same for me. Brave of you not to run for a teacher. I'm grateful. It will make everything much easier. The taunt about his father rang in Harry's ears as though Black had bellowed it. A boiling hate erupted in Harry's chest, leaving no place for fear. For the first time in his life, he wanted his wand back, in his hand, not to defend himself, but to attack, to kill. Okay, this is a really important scene, because this scene, you're going to see something like this again in book 5. In book 5, at the end of the book, Harry wants to take revenge for a death as well too. Here it's for Harry's father. Remember, Patronus Charm, his father. Here is Sirius Black. At the end of book 5, okay, it's all about Sirius Black again, and Harry wants to take revenge. Okay, and so this scene mirrors that scene at the end of book 5. And I don't know what page number it is, Elizabeth, or what chapter it is. I'd have to go back and go look. Okay, so, right, so Harry is furious. Did you hear me, said Ron Weasley, who's clinging painful to Harry to step right. You'll have to kill all 3 of us. There'll only be one murder tonight here, said Black, and his grin widened. What's that? Harry spat, trying to wrench himself free of Ron and Hermione. Didn't care last time, did you? Didn't mind slaughtering all those muggles to get to Pettigrew. What's the matter? Gone soft in Azkaban? Harry, Hermione whimpered, be quiet. He killed my mom and dad, Harry roared, and with a huge effort, he broke free of Hermione's hand and Ron's restraint and lunged forward. He had forgotten about magic. He had forgotten he was short and skinny and 13, whereas Black was a tall, full-grown man. And all Harry knew was that he wanted to hurt Black as badly as he could, and he didn't care how much he got hurt in return. Perhaps it was the shock of Harry doing something so stupid, but Black didn't raise the wands in time, and one of Harry's hands fastened over his wasted wrist, forcing the wand tips away. The knuckles of Harry's other hand collided with the side of Black's head, and they fell backward into the wall. Hermione was screaming, Ron was yelling. There was a blinding flash as the wands in Black's hands sent a jet of sparks into the air, and they missed Harry's face by inches. Harry felt the shrunken arm under his fingers twisting madly, but he clung on, his other hand punching every part of Black it could find. But Black's free hand had found Harry's throat. No, he hissed, I've waited too long. The fingers tightened. Harry choked, his glasses askew. Then he saw Hermione's foot swing out of nowhere. Black let go of Harry with a grunt of pain. Ron had thrown himself on Black's one hand, and Harry heard a faint clatter. So this is turned into this all-out brawl on page 340, 341. We see, right, the anger in Harry's mind. He is really telling us what he's thinking and believing. And in fact, at this point, there is really no narrator saying to us, this is what Harry's thinking. Harry is telling us exactly what he's thinking in this section. With all this in mind, the action really gets moving as we get onto Crookshanks protecting Sirius Black and Lupin showing up. So this adds another layer. Here comes Lupin, and we get the next revelation, right? So Harry finds out that Lupin was reading the Marauder's map. That's how he gets up there. He wants to kill Black as well, too. Okay. And so Hermione reveals that Lupin on page 345 is a werewolf, right? And that she knew ever since the essay that they had to write for Snape's class, right? And it's Lupin who says, right, thinking that Professor Tonelli called her a mundane mind, he says, you're the cleverest witch of your age I've ever met, Hermione. I'm not, Hermione whispered. If I'd been a bit cleverer, I'd have told everyone what you are. But they already know, said Lupin, at least the staff do. Dumbledore hired you even when he knew you were a werewolf? Ron gasped. Is he mad? Some of the staff thought so, said Lupin. He had to work very hard to convince certain teachers that I'm trustworthy. So we see this as a big pace. And then he tells them about the Marauder's map. Crookshanks protects Black, right? Again, personification of Crookshanks. And we then learn that Black is an animagus, Lupin is not an animagus, he's a werewolf, and that Peter Pettigrew is an animagus. So by the end of chapter 17, we have 3 revelations. Okay, next chapter 18 is Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Here we see the idea and the concept of truth, truth in the text, right? We need the idea of this theme of truth, right? We have to reveal the truth in order to, because Harry wants his revenge on page 340, right? So we need the truth to get to redemption, and truth always takes longer to be revealed than lies. It's easy to follow things that are not factual. It's harder to get to the truth. Would you agree or disagree with that statement? Because that's one of the lessons that we learn at the end of this book, right? It's easy to follow lies. It's harder to discover the truth. Why is it harder to get to the truth? Why is it harder to get to the truth, people? Right. And it's Dumbledore who tells us that earlier that truth can be telling the truth can be hurtful, right? And it's sometimes easier to accept a lie because it just makes us feel better than accepting truth. And to accept to get to truth, it means you have to go through the process of discovery, of exploration, of research to get to the truth. This is why so many people are caught up in conspiracy theories, right? It's the same thing here. I mean, it's like Rowling was talking about this, and in the 1990s, we had the beginnings of this, right? The idea of truth. It's a real postmodern view that truth is very subjective. In postmodernism, we believe truth is everybody has their own truth, but that's based on emotional subjectiveness. And so the idea of getting to truth takes work, right? To get to something that is objective rather than subjective. And I think that is what is one of the things that Rowling is starting to talk about here. That's why the way that we have so many bad apology videos on YouTube. I've never heard of this. Like people who believe things and then have to apologize for them. Give me an example of one that I could look at later. Put it in the chat and I'll look at it later. Okay, so, but one of the things that Lupin says, right? They didn't see, everyone thought Sirius killed Peter, said Lupin, nodding. I believed it myself until I saw the map tonight. So even Lupin says he believed the lie. Colin? I don't know what that means, Elizabeth. Be more specific. Or give me a link to a video and I'll look it up later. He says, until I saw the map tonight, because the Marauders map never lies. Peter's alive and Ron's holding him, Harry. Harry looked down at Ron, and as their eyes met, they agreed silently. Black and Lupin were both out of their minds. Their story made no sense whatsoever. How could Scabbers be Peter Pettigrew? Azkaban must have unhinged Black after all, but why was Lupin playing along with him? Then Hermione spoke in a trembling, would-be calm of sort of voice. Right? And so I'm going to click on it for later. Okay, and I will Colin Viggs vlogs. Okay, I will get to that one later. But thanks. 12 million views on a video apologizing. I can't wait to see this. So there's a lot of, this is like a thing, apology videos for things people thought is so bad. I see that a lot of you now, I'm going to be like 12.1 million views. One more person adding to this. Okay. So Black realizes, and Lupin realizes that Peter Pettigrew is alive. And then Lupin explains how he became a werewolf on page 352, how he was bitten by a small boy when he was a small boy. And that Professor Snape makes him a wolfsbane potion that that was discovered, and that's what he takes to help him make his transformations less terrible. Okay, so moving on. At the end, we've then discovered another revelation is that we discovered that Lupin, James Potter, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew were all childhood friends, and that they had all created the Marauders map. In all of this, at the end of chapter 17, chapter 18, Snape shows up, right? Severus Snape was pulling off the invisibility cloak, his wand pointed directly at Lupin at the end of chapter 18. So, chapter 19, we're almost at the end. Here is more revenge, right? So now Snape is going to get his revenge. So he thinks, right? And he says, thin like snake-like cords on page 359 burst from the end of Snape's wand and twisted themselves around Lupin's mouth, wrists, and ankles. He overbalanced and fell to the floor, unable to move. With a roar of rage, Black started towards Snape, but Snape pointed his wand directly between Black's eyes. Give me a reason, he whispered. Give me a reason to do it, and I swear I will. Black stopped. It would have been impossible to say which face showed more hatred. Harry stood there paralyzed, not knowing what to do or whom to believe. He glanced around to Ron and Hermione. Ron looked just as confused as he did, still fighting to keep his hold on the struggling Scabbers. Hermione took an uncertain step towards Snape and said in a very breathless voice, Professor Snape, it wouldn't hurt to hear what they've got to say, would it? Miss Granger, you are facing suspension from this school. Snape spat. You, Potter, and Weasley are out of bounds in the company of a convicted murderer and a werewolf. For once in your life, hold your tongue. But if there was a mistake, keep quiet, you stupid girl. So we have seen somebody call Hermione a mundane mind. We have seen her being called a mudblood. And now she's being called a stupid girl. And she was called the cleverest witch. People, do you think that this is an attack on Hermione because of her character, right? Like, she continues to be attacked and she really pushes through. And we have to see that she's really quite bullied by a lot of people. And so we see this and we got to think about how strong it makes Hermione as a person later, that she can overcome this bullying. Okay. And so we get to see another great moment with Hermione as the kids have their wands, and here all three of them yelled Expelliarmus, and they knocked Snape to the ground, knocked him out. And Hermione says, we attacked a teacher, Hermione whimpered, staring at the lifeless Snape with frightened eyes. Oh, we're going to be in so much trouble. Lupin was struggling against his bond. Black bent down quickly and untied him. Lupin straightened up, rubbing his arms where the ropes had cut into him. Thank you, Harry, he said. I'm still not saying I believe you, Harry retorted, right? Because the truth has not completely revealed everything. But they get through all this. It's Sirius Black who says Crookshanks is not crazy. He's again personified 3 times. Crookshanks is personified in this last section. And we get the last revelation of why the Whomping Willow was planted and why the Shrieking Shack existed, right? And so again, it is finally Harry on page 372. It takes a long time for Harry to come to this challenge of believing in the truth. Really, this is one of the many challenges Harry has to figure out throughout the series, is the idea of truth. What is true and what is not? By the time we get to book 5, Harry is struggling with this snake and him seeing through the eyes of the snake and not realizing whether this is true or whether this is dreams or whether he's hallucinating. And Harry has to deal with that in book 5. So this idea of truth comes back in book 5 wholeheartedly. And at long last, Harry believed, throat too tight to speak, he nodded, right? And so Harry finally believes all this about James and Lily and how Black had then given up his secret keeper to Peter Pettigrew. And it was Peter Pettigrew who sold them out. Okay. And in fact, they call him Peter Pettigrew Vermin, right? All right. But the best part is, as they leave, right, on chapter 20, we're almost done. We get the Dementor's Kiss, chapter 20. So this is where they come out of the Whomping Willow, and Harry is talking to, let me see. Harry is talking to Sirius Black about being a guardian. But we'll watch this video of the Shrieking Shack now before we leave the Whomping Willow.
How long have you known?
Since Professor Snape said the essay.
Well, Hermione, you really are the brightest witch of your age I've ever met.
Enough talk, Remus. Come on, let's kill him.
Wait!
I did my waiting. 12 years of it. In Azkaban.
Very well. kill him. But wait 1 more minute. Harry has the right to know why.
I know why. You betrayed my parents. You're the reason they're dead.
No, Harry, it wasn't him. Somebody did betray your parents, but it was somebody who, until quite recently, I believed to be dead.
Who was it then?
Peter Pettigrew. And he's in this room right now. Come on, Peter. Come out and play.
Vengeance is sweet. I hoped I'd be the one to catch you.
Severus.
I told Dumbledore you were helping an old friend into the castle, and now, here's the proof.
Brilliant, Snape. Once again, you put your keen and penetrating mind to the task, and as usual, come to the wrong conclusion. Now, if you'll excuse us, Remus and I have some unfinished business to attend to.
Give me a reason. I beg you.
Severus, don't be a fool.
He can't help it, it's habit by
Sirius,
now.
be quiet.
Find yourself, Remus.
Listen to you two quarreling like an old married couple.
Why don't you run along and play with your chemistry set?
I could do it, you know. But why deny the Dementors? They're so longing to see you. Do I detect a flicker of fear? Oh, yes. A Dementor's kiss. One can only imagine what that must be like to endure. It's said to be nearly unbearable to witness, but I'll do my best.
Severus, please.
After you.
Expelliarmus! Harry, what did you just do?
You attacked a teacher.
Tell me about Peter Pettigrew.
He was at school with us. We thought he was our friend.
No, Pettigrew's dead. You killed him.
No, he didn't. I thought so too until you mentioned seeing Pettigrew on the map.
The map was lying then.
Never lies. Pettigrew's alive. And he's right there.
Hey, it's mental.
Not you. You're rat.
Scabs has been in my family for
12 years. Curiously long life for a common garden rat. He's missing a toe, isn't he?
So what? All I could find of Pettigrew was his
Finger. The dirty coward cut it off so that everyone would think he was dead. And then he transformed into a rat.
Show me. Give in to him, Ron.
What are you trying to do to him? Scabbers! Leave him alone! Get off him! What are you doing? Scabbers!
Remus? Sirius? My old friend!
Harry, look at you. You look so much like your father, like James. We were the best of friends, you know. How dare you speak to Harry? How dare you talk about James in front of him? You sold James and Lily to Voldemort, didn't you? I didn't mean to.
Dark Lord, you've no idea the weapons he possesses. I'm such a Sirius. What would you have done? What would you have done?
I would have died. I would have died rather than betray my friends.
Harry, James wouldn't have wanted me killed. Oh, Dad. Your dad would have spared me. He was showing me mercy.
You should have realized, Peter, that if Voldemort didn't kill you, then we would. Together.
No!
Harry, this man...
I know what he is, but we'll take him to the castle.
Bless you, boy. Bless you.
Get off! I said we'd take you to the castle. After that, the Dementors can have you.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on this? Right? I like your comments about the clothes thing, by the way. I think that that's actually true. I've thought of that too, that when you magically become an animagus, your clothes go into hiding with you. I would be mortified if he was naked. Yeah, probably. You want to see him, anybody naked. Okay, so we get to see this scene, and then the next thing is Yeah, it's a little bit truer to the book. It's not exactly, Snape doesn't come out from the invisibility cloak. A lot of the little things are taken out of that scene, but I think it's in pretty good shape. They had to like really shrink it. It's such a good scene in the book. There's a lot of explanation, and they really had to get through it pretty quickly because in the book, it takes up most of chapter, like 17 and 18. There's 2 chapters towards all of this, and they had to get it done in like, I think that clip is about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. So they got it done pretty quickly considering. Okay, so in the movie you can get it done much quicker. As they leave, right, the Whomping Willow, there is this little moment where Harry has with Sirius Black and finds out he's his guardian and he could live with him. And it's a really touching moment because Sirius steps in for that moment into that guardian father figure. And Harry is just amazed by it and is quickly says yes. And this is really the mind of a 13-year-old, right? A 13-year-old who has not had a father or real mother figure in his life until the beginning of the book with Arthur Weasley talking to him about being careful. And then now he has the mentor of Lupin, and here comes Sirius Black. This is why I think this book is in an honoring way to fathers and men, and really talking about being absent fathers, and that you can find father figures in other men, right? And that sometimes it helps to have somebody else talking to your kids. One of the things that a friend of mine talked to me this week is she's like, will you text my daughter and like talk to her? Like, she'll listen to you, but she won't listen to me. And I'm like, okay, I will definitely do that, right? So sometimes it helps to have somebody outside of the parentage, right? And if we don't have a parent, you can find a mentor somewhere, okay? So, with all of this, the moon comes out, right? They never get to the store together. Not sure what I mean by that comment, but okay. So we finally get to they run off. Lupin becomes a werewolf. Sirius has become an animagus, but it's part of this is the lake scene at the end. They run off, and it's actually Hermione and Harry and Sirius running from the Dementors. Okay? In the movie, who's missing? Hermione is missing in the movie. So they run to the lake, okay? And he tries to do a Patronus, and he tries to use the memory of going to live with his godfather, and he's leaving the Dursleys. And what he tries to do, Expecto Patronum on page 383, but it doesn't work. But then something happens, right? Listen to what happens. But so the Dementors are about to attach themselves around Harry's neck. They were forcing his face upward. He could feel its breath. It was going to get rid of him first. He could feel it. He could feel its putrid breath. His mother was screaming in his ears. She was going to be the last thing he ever heard. And then, through the fog that was drowning him, he thought he saw a silvery light growing brighter and brighter. He felt himself fall forward onto the grass. Face down, too weak to move, sick and shaking, Harry opened his eyes. The Dementor must have released him. The blinding light was illuminating the grass around him. The screaming had stopped. The cold was ebbing away. Something was driving the Dementors back. It was circling around him and Sirius and Hermione. The rattling, sucking sounds of the Dementors were fading. They were leaving. The air was warm again. With every ounce of strength he could muster, Harry raised his head a few inches and saw an animal amid the light, galloping away across the lake. Eyes blurred with sweat, Harry tried to make out what it was. It was as bright as a unicorn. Fighting to stay conscious, Harry watched it canter to a halt as it reached the opposite shore. For a moment, Harry saw, by its brightness, somebody welcoming it back. raising its hand to pat it. Someone who looked strangely familiar, but it couldn't be. Harry didn't understand. He couldn't think anymore. He felt the last of his strength leave him as his head hit the ground as he fainted. So again, hero's journey. The hero has to almost die. End of chapter 20. Who does Harry think he sees across the lake? Who does Harry think he sees? His father. Yes, his dad, right? Okay. And he's really shocked by it, okay? Chapter 21, we're in the last 2 chapters, everybody. And then we can start book 4 on Thursday, on Friday. I'm so excited. Okay, Hermione's secret. Okay, Hermione, they get back and they wake up, of course, in the hospital wing, right? Now we have Snape, we have Ron, Hermione, everybody in the hospital wing. And the Minister of Magic shows up, of course. And right, the Dementors are still outside running around. And Harry, they've got Sirius Black in jail, right, in one of the towers. And the idea of the truth again having to come out is on page 389. But why don't adults ever believe children, right? In this story, even Dumbledore says it after they tell them everything. Okay, listen, Dumbledore says it, but Dumbledore held up his hand to stem the flood of explanations. It is your turn to listen, and I beg you will not interrupt me because there is very little time, he said quietly. So he gets rid of the Minister of Magic, he gets rid of Snape, and he talks to Hermione and Harry and Ron. There is not a shred of proof to support Black's story except your word. And the word of 2 13-year-old wizards will not convince anybody. A street full of eyewitnesses swore they saw Sirius murder Pettigrew. I myself gave evidence to the ministry that Sirius had been the Potter's secret keeper. Professor Lupin can tell you, Harry said, unable to stop him. Professor Lupin is currently deep in the forest, unable to tell anyone anything. By the time he is human again, it will be too late. Sirius will be worse than dead. I might add that werewolves are so mistrusted by our kind that his support will count for very little. And the fact that he and Sirius are old friends. But listen to me, Harry. It's not too late. You understand me? You must see that Professor Snape's version of events is far more convincing than yours. He hates Sirius, Hermione said desperately, all because of some stupid tricks Sirius played on him. Sirius has not acted like an innocent man. The attack on the fat lady entering Gryffindor Tower with a knife without Pettigrew alive or dead. We have no chance of returning Sirius's sentence. So we see that Dumbledore even tells them they're not going to believe you and you have to figure out a different way to get to the truth. And in a way, what he tells them is to go beyond this. Now, listen to this point, right? Harry stared up into the gray face and felt as though the ground beneath him were falling sharply away. He had grown used to the idea that Dumbledore could solve anything. He had expected Dumbledore to pull some amazing solution out of the air, but no, their last hope was gone. What we need, said Dumbledore slowly, and his light blue eyes moved from Harry to Hermione, is more time. So this is the last revelation that we get. Okay? Now pay attention to Dumbledore speaking very low and very clearly. Sirius is locked in Professor Flitwick's office on the 7th floor, 13th window from the right of the West Tower. If all goes well, you will be able to save more than one innocent life tonight. But remember this, both of you, you must not be seen. Miss Granger, you know the law, you know what's at stake. You must not be seen. I'm going to lock you in, he consulted his watch. 5 minutes to midnight. Miss Granger, 3 turns should do it. Good luck. Good luck. So, right? So Harry is thinking that Dumbledore's going to solve it, and Dumbledore does solve it, but it's Hermione who knows, right, how to solve it because she has a time turner. So she is the one who's going to solve the problem. So she has to tell Harry about the time turner very quickly and go back in time. Page 395. It's a time turner is 3 circles. Now they make it look like an hourglass in the chapter heading in the chapter, but it's not. It's 3 circles with a little small hourglass in the middle, and you spin it, and it is the time turner. Okay, so and so she figures out that they have to go save Buckbeak, they have to go save Sirius Black, and that all of this will work together. So this is when they go back in time, they do everything all over again. But the most important part of this is the scene at the end. Okay, let me make sure. I think I have another video after this. I think I do. One more. Oh, I have a video on how to become an anime guy. Okay. So after all of this, they save Buckbeak by taking him away from Hagrid's hut. We know all of that. But the most important scene is the Patronus at the end, right? Harry and Hermione are watching themselves and Sirius Black being attacked by the Dementors. And it is finally Harry who jumps out, page 411, and he yells Expecto Patronum. Out of the end of his wand burst not a shapeless cloud of mist, but a blinding, dazzling silver animal. He screwed up his eyes, trying to see what it was. It looked like a horse. It was galloping silently away from him across the black surface of the lake. He saw it lower its head and charge at the swarming Dementors. Now it was galloping around the black shapes on the ground, and Dementors were falling back, scattering, retreating into the darkness. They were gone. The Patronus turned. It was cantering back towards Harry across the still surface of the water. It wasn't a horse. It wasn't a unicorn either. It was a stag. It was shining brightly as the moon above, and it was coming back to him. It stopped on the bank. Its hooves made no mark on the soft ground as it stared at Harry with its large silvery eyes. Slowly, it bowed its antlered head, and Harry realized, "Prongs," he whispered. But as his trembling fingers stretched out toward the creature, it vanished. Harry stood there, hands still outstretched, and with a great leap in his heart, he heard hooves behind him. He whirled around and saw Hermione dashing toward him, dragging Buckbeak behind her. So, this is the scene where he realizes this is his father. This is the last clip of the day, and we are going to do the denouement.
Sirius. Come on!
This is horrible.
Don't worry. My dad will come. He'll conjure the Patronus. Any minute now. Right there. You'll see.
Harry, listen to me. No one's coming.
Don't worry, he will. He will come. Sirius.
You're dying. Both of you. Harry!
Expecto Patronum!
Okay, so I do feel like don't get we see the Patronus, but we don't see it cantering back like in the book. I think in the book it's much more beautiful, that scene. Having the realization that his father is within him and that this whole thing is about his father. And his Patronus always stays as Prongs, his father. So, and everybody tells him he looks like his father, but has his mother's eyes. And so this is that moment where he gets an identity beyond his mother's eyes. So the last chapter is the famous denouement by Dumbledore, as Snape realizes that that Sirius Black has escaped and that Buckbeak has gone with him, right? Buckbeak is gone as well too, and Buckbeak gets on and Sirius Black leave Hogwarts, right? And Snape loses it on page 419. He is yelling big bold capital letters at Potter, and what did he do? And he's like, they helped him escape. I know it. And it's Dumbledore who says, that will do, Severus, said Dumbledore quietly. Think about what you were saying. This door has been locked since I left the ward 10 minutes ago. Madame Pomfrey, have these students left their beds? Of course not, said Madame Pomfrey, bristling. I would have heard them. Well, there you have it, Severus, said Dumbledore calmly. Unless you're suggesting that Harry and Hermione are able to be in two places at once, I'm afraid I don't see any point in troubling them further. Right? And so it is Dumbledore who says he's just suffered a severe disappointment, which is revenge. Poor Snape cannot get revenge on Sirius Black for this. So the 3 R's are resolved by all the disguises and the 3Ds, right? The disguise, the deception, all these things are the dualities are all realizing, and then we get to see the very end where everything gets resolved, right? We now know about the Animagi and how this last trial is very important for Harry in considering his other part of his identity. In book 1, it's about his mother and the sacrifice she made and how it's in his blood. In book 2 is about his own personal identity. And in book 3, it's about his identity with his father. Okay, so everything gets resolved as well too. So this basically ends the book. And it is now Dumbledore who says on page 427, very important, okay? Harry looked at Dumbledore, wouldn't laugh. He could tell Dumbledore. Last night, I thought it was my dad who conjured my Patronus. I mean, when I saw myself across the lake, I thought I was seeing him. An easy mistake to make, said Dumbledore softly. I expect you'll tire of hearing it, but you look extraordinarily like James. Except for the eyes. You have your mother's eyes. Harry shook his head. It was stupid thinking it was him, he muttered. I mean, I knew he was dead. You think the dead we have loved ever truly leave us? You think that we don't recall them more clearly than ever in times of great trouble? Your father is alive in you, Harry, and shows himself most plainly when you have need of him. How else could you produce that particular Patronus? Prongs rode again last night. It took a moment for Harry to realize that Dumbledore had said, last night Sirius told me about how they became Animagi, said Dumbledore, smiling. An extraordinary achievement, not least keeping it quiet from me. And then I remembered the most unusual form your Patronus took when it charged Mr. Malfoy down at the Quidditch match against Ravenclaw. So you did see your father last night, Harry. You found him inside yourself. So this is the last thing I want to mention about Harry and his own realization of having his father within him. And I think it's also important that that bit of it comes back at the end of book 5. And we need to keep this in mind. So if you keep reading into book 5, when you get to the end, you're going to kind of feel like you've seen this before. Okay, so with that in mind, I think I am done for the day. It's 12:30, and as always, I know there's a few